Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Asad Yaqub and I am from Lahore, Pakistan, and here I am with another IELTS listening test for you. This is latest IELTS listening test and we are going to solve this test together. This test contains one word only, multiple choice, map completion and all that, and in IELTS at present they are almost giving the same type of questions, so it's a good idea to practice all these questions. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to read all these questions for you. I'm going to explain, I'll give you the tips, then afterwards I'll play the audio along with the handout, so you can watch the handout and you can listen to the audio, and you must write the answers in your notebook, or it's a good idea if you print out listening answer sheets, you can write your answers there directly. And after that I'll show you the answers, then you can actually check your answers out of 40, how many answers are correct. And let me tell you, listening and reading, they are the best band indicators. They always tell you what band score you are going to get. So through listening and through reading, you can always get to know about your band score. So we are going to solve one word only, table completion. Then we will solve multiple choice. We do have a map as well. It's the map of a community garden project. Then we have more multiple choice, matching and all that stuff. So without any further delay, let's go to the handout and I'm going to explain all these questions to you. Let's start. Okay, now let's take a start. Complete the table below. It's table completion. Write no more than one word and or. And means plus, one word plus a number or just a number. Right, without any word, only a number for each answer. Community center evening classes. Now we've got class, where, when, what to bring, cost. So the audio will go like this, then here, then here. Right, and remember one thing. Now for example, here we've got question number 3. This can give you some clue and this can give you some clue. We've got question number 1 and 4. This can give you some clue. Question number 2. This can give you some clue for question 5 and 2. And here amount, so we can get the clue. So always look above, you can get the clue, or look below, you can get the clue. That's important. Okay, this is example which is done. When at dash PM on Tuesday. Dash PM, now here they've written 6 PM. So it means it's going to be a time. Next, water jar and set off. What to bring? 2 things you need to bring. One is water jar and a set off, pair of, whatever of something you got to bring. Cost is already mentioned, so you don't need to read. Next class is Maori language. Maori language, where? The small room at the dash of the building. At the dash of the building, it means it can be at the back of the building, at the front of the building, at the somewhere, right? So it's going to be there. Next, when starts in. Now when means it can be a day or it can be time. Now they've mentioned in, starts in 1 week, starts in 2 weeks. So this preposition is a very good clue. Remember, before or after. Now for example here, dash of the building. Now this of after is a very good clue, and this in before is a very good clue. Prepositions are very nice clues. Next, what to bring? Small recorder. Cost is already mentioned. We don't need to read that carefully. Next is digital photography, where room 9 is mentioned. When is also mentioned. What to bring? The dash for the camera. Now it is something which is related to the camera. Right? Maybe the film for the camera or the batteries for the camera or something for the camera which is related to camera. You got to bring that. Cost in pounds. 8 classes. Now pound sign is already given on your answer sheet. You don't need to write the pound sign. You just write the number. 8 classes. Now they might tell you the cost for 8 classes and 4 classes and 12 classes. So remember, you need to avoid the traps. After this, we've got this, write one word only for each answer. Now purely one word without any and or. The watercolors class suits people who are. Now suits people who are means it's the type of people, right? Who are energetic, who are active, and it's one word only, right? It can be, the answer is going to be an adjective, right? So it's going to be an adjective, I'm sure, but it can be some other answer as well. To find out about the Maori language class, contact Jason Dash. Jason Dash means his last name will come here. His first name is given Jason, So last name is missing, you will write it here. For the photography class, check the dash for the camera. Now it is linked with photography class. Check the dash, you need to check something which is related to camera. For the photography class, check the flash for the camera, check the battery for the camera, check the lens for the camera, check the something you need to check which is related to camera. There is a trip to a local dash. Now it can be local hospital, local, it is going to be a sort of a location. The answer is going to be a location in the final week of the photography class. So there will be a trip in the final week. For final week they might use the word last week. Last week of the photography class, there's going to be a trip to a local whatever, right? So they will tell you exactly, and it's one word only. Now let's go on. It's not going to be difficult with me, okay? This is very important type of questions. Choose two letters A to E. Now you got to choose any two letters, and remember, for choose two letters A to E, this statement is very, very important. Which two tasks now? Which two tasks will the volunteers in group A be responsible for? Group A and responsible, right? So you need to find two tasks group A will be responsible for. Now for example, they can talk about group A and group B. So they will give some responsibility to group B and some responsibility to group A, and they will talk about all of them one by one. They cannot be in the same order, but they can be in any order. Widening pathways, planting trees, picking up rubbish, putting up signs, building fences. So mainly you got to see group A. If it is going to be done by group A, you got to encircle. If it is going to be done by group B or any other person, not group A, then you don't need to select that. So which two tasks, okay? Now we've got question, and you can select two options and write them on the answer sheet, because now it's equal to 2 marks. So you can write them in any order. There is no problem. If the answer is, for example, CD, you can write CD 11, 12, or you can write DC 11, 12, no problem. Next questions 13 and 14. Choose two letters A to E. Which two items? Now again, which two items should volunteers in group A bring with them? Now two items and volunteers in group A bring. Okay, and by the way, you have to keep this statement in your mind, that there are two items and volunteers in group A, they have to bring food and water, boots, gloves, raincoats, and their own tools, and you can select the right answer. This is very, very simple. You can do that. Now let's go on. We've got this. Write the correct letter A to I. Now A to I is over here. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, right? So write the correct letter A to I next to questions 15 to 20. Now these are the locations, and you got to find these locations on the map. Remember, the information which is given, that's a very good clue, right? Yeah, this is given information. So given information is a very good clue, one thing. Second, they might start from anywhere. Now first they are going to tell you about vegetable beds. So it is not necessary that it will start from A, then B, then C, then D. It can be in any order. But anyways, car park is here, bicycle track is here, there is one island. So the answers are going to be about this, 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 and all that. The most important thing is, number one, you need to be with the audio. As the audio goes on, see that they have mentioned this, these are the bamboo fences. So you might even write, if you find time, you can write fence. This is also fence. This is also fence, and then this is footpath, right? All this is footpath. So all the information that is given, you have to observe each and everything. Now for example, they use the word fence. They'll say between C and D there is a fence, and you don't know this is a fence if you don't read this. So anyways, first in the audio they will tell you about vegetable beds, right? It's a sort of a Headley Park Community Gardens project. They will tell you about vegetable beds, and the first thing you need to see, from where are they starting. If they are starting from the car park, then they will take you to different places, or if they're starting from bicycle track, then they will take you from there. So from where they start, then they will go on and on and on, and you can just see. There are two ways. Either you can write that A, B, C, D over here, Or otherwise, the good thing is if you put your finger over here. Now for example, vegetable beds. Now I see and they tell me that this is vegetable beds, I should write 15 here. Right? Because instead of going back there, now once you go back there, you are not paying attention here. So you should pay full attention here. Now 16 is beehive, beehive, beehive. Now for example, if they say this is beehive, just write 16 over here, and later on when they give you half minute, then you can transfer your answers over there. This is very important. Otherwise, if you say okay, answer is D, I write answer D. In the meantime, when you go back, then you come back and you will lose the track with the audio, and then you will have to again see, oh, where was I, where was the audio, and all that stuff. So you can do it like this. Okay, that's it. Beehive, sitting, and remember over here you don't need to read the questions. You need to study this map. Because questions you can take a look, these are just simple words, but you need to take a look at the map. So it's not going to be difficult. Yeah, do it and then we'll check the answers. Okay, next one is multiple choice with 3 options. So choose the correct letter A, B, C. Food waste. It's all about food waste. Now here, this statement is very important. What point does Robert, now there will be a speaker Robert. What point does Robert make about 2013 study in Britain? Now they will talk about 2013 study in Britain. Now see, we've got 3 options and they are quite long. One is it focused. Here the verb is focused, proved. They might use the word like proof and all that. Included. So you need to focus the verbs actually. Of course we've got the details and you can just see that, but actually the main thing is focus. For focus they might use the word pay attention. For proof they can use there was a proof, and included means it contained and all that, and they will go for synonyms, right? There is a clue, there is a sort of a tip. If they use the direct word, if they use the word focused, usually that's not the right option. For the right option, they always use synonym. So you need to see what they are talking about and all that. Number 22, the speakers agree. Now they agree on something, that food waste. Now this is the statement. Food waste reports should emphasize the connection between carbon dioxide emissions and. Now one thing is carbon dioxide emissions, and there is another thing, and they agree on that. Now carbon dioxide emissions and food production, transport of food to landfill sites, distribution of food. So it's production, it's transportation of food, and it's distribution of food products. So one thing that goes with it. Now they might say, some people said it's carbon dioxide emission and food production, but all did not agree to that. It means that's a trap. Again I say, in listening there are certain traps. Now one right answer, other 2 wrong answers are traps. You got to save from the traps. You got to escape actually. 23, television programs now tend to focus on. Now TV programs, and they focus. They pay attention, their main focus, they highlight. They can use any word, and remember they will use the synonym. Okay, you don't need to read articles at all. Nutrition value, as we are talking about food, so food is understood, right? Nutrition value, origin of food products, chemicals found in food products. So it's nutrition value, origin, chemicals. Right, this is how. And then when the audio goes on, they will talk about television program, and you will move here and there. Are they talking about nutritional values or origin of food or chemical found? And they might use some synonyms as well, and there are the traps also. Next, for Anna, the most significant point about food waste is, now for Anna there is, now see, most significant. She might talk about some other points also, but most significant, most important, most valuable point about food waste is, don't read these, moral aspects, environmental impact, economic effect. Now aspect and impact, that's the same thing. It's moral or ethical. For environment they might use some other word, and economic they might use some other word. It's one of these. Okay, so you can do another thing. As you are listening, you can just see, oh, this is not the right answer. Then move on. They talk about this and you realize, no, this is not the right answer. Yeah, this is the right answer. So you can do it like this as well. And I would say put your pen here. Don't put your pen here. Okay, why? I tell you why. When you put your pen here, your eyes will automatically follow the whole statement. If you put your pen here, your eyes will only follow up till here. So put your pen over here. Wow, it's another technique I just found out. Okay, Anna and Robert now both decide to begin their presentation by, now what? Handing out a questionnaire. So there is a questionnaire, right? Main thing is questionnaire, which they cannot change. Providing statistical evidence. Now statistical evidence, this is important. And showing images of wasted food, showing images. Okay, so how are they going to start their presentation? They might say, first we decided to start the presentation by showing some images of the food that is wasted, but later on we realized it's much better if we start with the questionnaire. They increase the volume and all that. So I tell you, this technique is also very good. And put the pencil here at the end, automatically you'll read all the sentence. Okay, now let's go on. We've got questions 26 to 30. What advantages? This line is very important. What advantages do the speakers identify? Advantages and speakers identify for each of the following projects. Now these are the projects, right? And what advantages do they just find? Now when you get the time to read the questions, don't read the questions. Okay, don't read this. All you need to do, you need to read this. The first thing you need to do, just cross it all. You don't need to read that. It's all understood. Should save time, it's basically save time. Create new jobs, okay, benefit local communities, make money, encourage personal responsibilities, easy to advertise, involve little cost. See that? Now this is short. And again, pencil should be here. One finger should be here. When you are doing it on paper, one finger should be here. First say edible patch. Now about edible patch, they will start talking. And when they start talking, you got to see whether it is, and your eyes will move. It's about time, it's about jobs, it's about benefits, it's about money. Is it about personal responsibility or about advertisement or about cost? So then you can just decide, oh, and then another thing, instead of doing this, that, oh yes, for 26, E is the right answer, I write E. No, simply if you think for 26, this is the right answer, write 26 here. Then you see, okay, it's there, they're talking about it, write 27. This is how your attention will never ever be diverted. Now for example, they are talking about B and I come back and I say, yes, my answer is B, and I go back there. So then I may lose the concentration and attention. So it's a good idea. And afterwards, now 26 is C, I can write C here. 27 is F, I can write F here. So this is the best technique for that. Once again, it's Asad Yaqub's technique. Let's go on. We got section 4 and all the questions here. Okay, now we've got one word only for each answer. Kite making. Oh, I love flying the kites, but now it's become dangerous, so I don't like it anymore. Kite making by the Maori people of New Zealand. Now you don't need to read all that. Okay, just read kite making, making an appearance of the kites. Alright, now this is already written, so you just read no. Dash was not allowed. Now something which was not allowed, they might use the word prohibited, disallowed, they were not permitted and all that. Dash was not allowed during a kite's present preparation. Now what was not allowed? One word only. Again, I'm telling you, they might use this thing in a very tricky way, that they were actually dash was prohibited, or they were not allowed to do or to dash, whatever. Next, kites often represent a bird, a god or a. Three things. One is a bird, one is a god or a. Now what is that? Often represented a bird, a god or a, something like that. Okay. Can be a devil or something like that. Had frames that were decorated with grasses and two objects, material. Had frames that were decorated with grasses and bamboos, grasses and something, right? Had a line of noisy dash attached to them. So there was a line of noisy in Punjabi, you know, whenever we make kite, I'm just doing it out of the way. I know how to make kite as well, okay. I learned it when I was small, okay. So whenever there is a kite, we put a tail and we also call it punja, and that actually makes some noise, right? So had a line of noisy something attached to them. Attached to them means kites. Okay, kites, yeah. So you need to see a line of what? Line of noisy paper, line of noisy something. Could be triangular, this is triangular, rectangular, or, now it's a shape. Wow, wow, wow. Asad Yaqub is telling you all. So the answer to 35 is a shape. It can be round, it can be triangular, rectangular, or square. Yeah, that is missing. So it is the shape, and we are talking about kites. So this is how you got to read. Had patrons made from clay mixed with. Now patrons made from clay mixed with what? They mixed something in the clay. It can be dash oil. Alright, it's a type of oil. So type of oil they will tell you, and you got to write it down. Sometimes had human head masks with dash and a tattoo. Sometimes had human head masks with dash and a tattoo. Two things. One is tattoo and the other thing is missing. So you can just find it in the audio. Purpose and function of kites. Okay. A way of sending to the gods. Alright. A way of sending offerings to the God, a way of sending messages to the God, a way of sending prayers to the God, right? So it can be anything, and it's one word only. A way of telling other villagers that a dash was necessary. Means it's going to start with a non-vowel. Means it's going to be a singular noun. A way of telling other villagers that something was necessary. So for necessary they might use it is important to, and all that. It was a means of dash. Now this is preposition, it's very helpful here. Article, preposition, and all that. A means of dash if enemies were coming. A means of information. A means of what do we say? There are some other words like that. If enemies were coming. So they used kites for that purpose also. A means of intimation. A means of making them alert, but it's one word only, so it can be anything like that. Now I play the audio, you got to listen to it and you got to find these answers.
You will hear a conversation between an assistant at a community centre and a man who wants to join some evening classes. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6.
Hello, Eastwood Community Centre.
Oh, hello. My name's Andrew Dyson. I'm calling about the evening classes you offer.
OK, Mr Dyson. Are there any classes in particular that you're interested in?
Yes, you've got a class called Painting with Watercolours, I believe.
That's right. It's a popular class, so this term it'll be moving to the hall, so they've got more room.
Right. I know it's on Tuesdays, but what time exactly?
It was 6:30 last term, but let me just have a look at the details. OK, it'll be 7:30 this time. Probably it suits more people.
Well, it's my wife who's really interested, and that'll be good for her because she's home from work by 7:15. That'll give her just enough time to get there. What does she need to bring?
OK, well, paints are provided by the tutor, I know that. The information says she'll need just a jar for water and some pencils for drawing. There are also lots of aprons here, so she needn't worry what she's wearing. And the cost for 4 classes is $45, including paints, as I said.
OK. Now, we're both quite keen on the Maori language class.
There are spaces on the next course, so you could join that.
Oh, good. Which room will that be in?
When you come in through the entrance of the community centre building, you'll need to go straight up the stairs in front of you, all the way to the top, and it's the small room you'll find there.
I see. All right, and let me just check when it's starting. I heard from someone that the July course has been delayed until August.
I'm afraid so, and we're halfway through the June course at the moment, so there's not much point you taking that.
I guess we'll have to wait then.
Well, when you do come, the tutor recommends bringing a small recorder with you, just so you can listen again later. And the cost for 5 classes is currently $40.
Okay, useful information to know. There's one more class I'm interested in. That's the digital photography class.
Oh, I've taken that class myself. The tutor's very good. That'll be in room 9, and it's starting in 2 weeks' time, in the evening, every Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Obviously I need to bring the camera with me. I suppose it'd be useful to have the instructions that go with the camera too?
I'd say so. Some people bring along a lot of accessories like extra lenses, but there's really no need for this class. It's mainly focusing on composition, really, and getting the most out of the basic camera.
That's exactly what I need. And how much does it cost?
Let's see. For 4 classes, it's $35. But if you take 8, it works out as $55. So you're making a bit of a saving. $15, that is.
I see.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you will have some time to look at the questions 7 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
Okay, now just another question for the watercolours class. I've just remembered that my wife asked me to find out about the level. Who's it for?
Okay, well, you don't have to be very skilled or anything like that. It's designed for beginners, actually. People who might see art as a hobby rather than as a professional opportunity.
That sounds like my wife. And, who do I talk to if I want to find out some more about the Maori language classes?
Probably best to talk to the tutor directly. He'll be in the office in about half an hour. His name's Jason Kuai. That's Kahui.
Good. I'll give him a call.
Oh, if you do decide to come to the photography class, don't forget to look at your camera battery and make sure it's charged. I know it sounds obvious, but I've seen a few people suddenly find the cameras stopped working right in the middle of class.
Yes, I can imagine it'd be easy to forget that. Oh, that reminds me. In the final week of the photography course, is it right that there's a visit to a show in the local area? I work in the city, you see, so I might have to come home early for that one.
Yes, they'll decide the date once the class has started. Is there anything else I can...
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2. You will hear a project manager talking to voluntary workers about the tasks that need to be done. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14.
Good morning. It's great to see so many people here. Thank you all very much for coming. Well, as you know, the community gardens at Hadley Park are really not looking as good as they should. Quite bad, really. And although the local council has a budget to deal with some of the problems, we do need volunteers for other tasks. If you don't mind, I'm going to divide you into 2 groups. So everyone on this side of the room is Group A, and the rest of you are Group B. So, Group A, there are a couple of things we'd like you to help with. First of all, don't worry about any litter or empty bottles you see lying about. One of the local schools has offered to help out with that as part of their own environmental project. The priority for you will be to give us a hand with the new wooden fencing. It needs constructing along parts of the bicycle track, as there are parts which have now fallen down or broken, as I'm sure you've seen. You've probably also noticed that some of the pathways that come from the bicycle track are quite narrow, and there are plans to make them wider, but the council will be dealing with that later in the year. And they've also promised to produce some informational signs about the plants in the gardens. Hopefully, they'll be up in a few weeks' time. The other thing we're doing is getting rid of some of the foreign species that are growing in the gardens and putting back some native plants and trees. So you'll be doing some digging for us and getting those into the ground. So, Group A, there's some items you'll need to bring along with you. I was going to say raincoats, but the forecast has changed, so you can leave those at home. I'd definitely recommend a strong pair of boots. Waterproof would be best. It's quite muddy at the moment, and your own gloves would also be advisable. Tools will be available, spades and hammers, that kind of thing. You just need to make sure they go back in the trucks. And, there's no need to worry about food and drink, as we'll be supplying sandwiches and coffee, possibly some biscuits even.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you will have some time to look at the questions 15 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
OK, Group B, your turn. Does everyone have a copy of the plan? Oh, great. OK. We'll all be meeting in the car park. That's on the bottom of the plan. See? Now, if you've been assigned to the vegetable beds, to get there, you go out of the car park and go up the footpath until you reach the circle of trees. There they are, in the middle of the plan. And you see that the footpath goes all the way around them. Well, on the left-hand side of that circular footpath, there's a short track which takes you directly to the vegetable beds. You can see a bamboo fence marked just above them. All right? OK, if you're helping out with the beehives, pay attention. Look again at the circle of trees in the middle of the plan and the footpath that goes around them. On the right side of that circle, you can see that the footpath goes off in an easterly direction, heading towards the right-hand side of the plan. And then the path splits into two, and you can either go up or down. You want the path that heads down. And at the end of this, you see two areas divided by a bamboo fence. And as we're looking at the plan, the beehives are on the right of the fence. The smaller section, I mean. Now, don't worry, all the bees have been removed. You just need to transport the hives back to the car park. OK, for the seating, look at the circular footpath. At the top of it, there's a path that goes from there and takes you up to the seating area, alongside the bicycle track, and with a good view of the island, I suppose. OK, if you're volunteering for the adventure playground area, let's start from the car park again and go up the footpath, but then you want the first left turn. Go up there, and then you see there's a short path that goes off to the right. Go down there, and that's the adventure playground area, above the bamboo fence. That fence does need repairing, I'm afraid. Right, what else? Oh yes, the sand area. We've got that circular footpath in the middle. Find the track that goes east, towards the right-hand side of the plan, and where that track divides, you need the little path that goes up towards the bicycle track. The sand area is just above the bamboo fence there. And finally, the pond area. So it's on the left-hand side of your plan, towards the top, just above the fruit bushes and to the left of the little path. OK, as I said already, hopefully we'll be...
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3. You will hear two students discussing a presentation they are going to give. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25.
Hi, Robert.
Hi. Sorry I'm late. I was just printing off some pages about food waste in Britain.
Do you want to include Britain in the presentation? I thought we were concentrating on the USA.
Well, it is a global problem, so I thought we ought to provide some statistics that show that.
Fair enough. What did you find out?
Well, I was looking at a British study from 2013. It basically concluded that 12 billion pounds worth of food and drink was thrown away each year, all of it ending up in landfill sites. Over 8 million tons. And that wasn't including packaging.
An incredible amount.
Yes, and they were only looking at what households threw away, so there's no information about restaurants and the catering industry. But one thing the study did investigate was the amount of milk and soft drinks that were wasted, and I think it was probably quite unique in that respect.
Interesting. You know, in the other European reports I've read, there's one thing they have in common when they talk about carbon dioxide emissions.
I know what you are going to say. They never refer to the fuel that farms and factories require to produce the food, and the carbon dioxide that releases?
Exactly. We could really cut down on carbon emissions if less food was supplied in the first place. To my mind, the reports talk too much about the carbon dioxide produced by the trucks that deliver the fresh goods to the shops and take the waste away. They forget about one of the key causes of carbon dioxide.
Absolutely. If the reports are actually going to be useful to people, they need to be more comprehensive.
Who do you mean by people?
Well, the government, industries, people making television programs. Have you seen any documentaries about food waste?
Not that I remember.
My point exactly. These days, they all seem to be focusing on where your meat, fruit, and vegetables are sourced from. We're being encouraged to buy locally, not from overseas. That's probably a good thing, but I'd still like to see something about waste.
Yes, it's the same with magazine articles. It's all about fat and sugar content, and the kind of additives and coloring in food, but nothing about how it reaches your table and what happens after it ends up in the bin.
Well, we've only got 15 minutes for this presentation, so I think we'll have to limit what we say about the consequences of food waste. What do we want to concentrate on?
Well, I know some of the other presentations are looking at food and farming methods and what they do to the environment. So I think we'll avoid that. And the fact that in some countries, people can't afford the food grown on their own farms. That was covered last term.
Okay, we don't want to repeat stuff.
What concerns me above all else is that in a recession, governments should be encouraging business to find ways to cut costs. Apparently, supermarkets in the USA lose about 11% of their fruit to waste. That's throwing money away.
All right, we'll focus on that problem. It should get the others' attention anyway. Now, how do you want to begin the presentation? Let's not start with statistics, though, because that's what everybody does.
I agree. How about we give the other students a set of questions to answer about what they suspect they waste every day?
I'm fine with that. Probably a better option than showing pictures of landfill sites. It'll be more personalized that way.
All right. Now let's start.
Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Okay, shall we now have a look at the projects that different researchers and organizations are working on?
For me, the project I really liked was the one at Tufts University. You know, where they've invented tiny edible patches to stick on fresh foods that show you what level of bacteria is present, and so whether you can still eat it.
It's a great idea, as it tells you if you need to hurry up and eat the food before it goes off. The other good thing about the patches is that apparently they'll be cheap to manufacture.
Good. Then the other thing I thought was great was the Massachusetts Institute of Technology project.
I hadn't seen that.
Well, they've developed these sensors that can detect tiny amounts of ethylene. Ethylene is the natural plant hormone in fruit that makes them turn ripe, apparently. The researchers think that they can attach the sensors to cardboard boxes, and then supermarkets can scan the sensors with a portable device to see how ripe the fruit inside is. That's got to be a quicker way to check for ripeness than taking each box off the shelf and opening it.
Definitely. And I thought that Lean Path was worth mentioning too. Their waste tracking technology means that caterers can see how much food is being wasted and why. That'll increase profits for them eventually.
Yes. And did you read about 0%? They've produced this smartphone application that allows restaurants to send donation alerts to food charities. The charities can then pick up the unwanted food and distribute it to people in need.
In the long run, that'll definitely benefit poorer families in the neighborhood. No kid should go to school hungry.
I agree. And I read that quite a few local governments in the USA are thinking about introducing compulsory composting in their states. So you can't put any food waste into your rubbish bins, just the compost bin.
Well, I guess that means a bit more work for people. I mean, they have to separate the organic and inorganic waste themselves before they take it out to the compost bin, and you know how lazy some people are. But I guess if we all start composting, we'd be doing something positive about the problem of food waste ourselves, rather than relying on the government to sort it out. Having said that, not everyone has a garden, so I guess...
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4. You will hear a lecture about Maori kite making. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Well, good morning, everyone. As you know, we've been looking at different kinds of art and craft that were practiced by the Maori people of New Zealand, at least before the Europeans began to arrive in the 18th century. So, the focus of this lecture is kite making, how the kites were made, their appearance, and the purposes they served. Well, let's start with the way they were made. As with other Maori artistic traditions, kite making involved certain rituals. So, firstly, only priests were allowed to fly and handle the largest, most sacred kites. There were rules too, for the size and scale of the kites that the priests had to follow, and during the preparation of both small and large kites, food was strictly forbidden. In terms of appearance, kites were frequently designed in the image of a native bird or a Maori god, and sometimes, perhaps less often, a well-known hero. You can imagine that when Maori first arrived in the new country, in New Zealand, it may have taken some time to find suitable materials for their kites. But, through trial and error no doubt, they found plants and trees that provided bark and even roots that they could use to make the frames and wings of their kites. And after the frame had been constructed, the kite then had to be decorated. For this, the priests used long grasses, and these, when the kite was in the air, would stream along behind it. They also used a variety of feathers to add colour to their creations. Well, all this meant it was easy to see a kite in the sky, but you could also hear Maori kites. They could be quite noisy indeed, and this was because some priests liked to hang a long row of shells from the kite. You can imagine how they'd rattle and clatter in the wind, how they might completely capture your attention. As I said before, the most common image was probably a bird, and that's the same for other kite-making cultures. But the kites were designed in particular shapes. So, there were kites that were triangular, rectangular, and also shaped like a diamond. And some of them were so large it would actually require several men to operate them. Some of the kites were also covered in patterns, and to make these patterns, the Maori used different pigments of red and black, and these were either made from a charcoal base or from red-brown clay which had been combined with oil obtained from a local species of shark. Now, before I forget, if you have a chance, do visit the Auckland Museum, because they have the last surviving Birdman kite on display. This is the kind of kite that has a wooden mask at the top of the frame. It's a mask of a human head, and you can clearly see it has a tattoo and also a set of teeth. Quite impressive, and a good example of Maori craftsmanship and symbolism. Right, turning to the purpose and function of the kites. They certainly had multiple uses. Primarily, the flying of kites was a way of communicating with the gods, and when the kites rose into the air, the Maori used them to deliver messages, perhaps requesting a good harvest, good fortune in war, a successful hunting expedition. So these kites were incredibly valuable to a community, treasured objects that one generation would pass to the next. People would also fly kites for other reasons. For example, to attract the attention of a neighbouring village. This was done when a meeting was required between Maori elders, a convenient method indeed. And finally, when it comes to war, there are traditional stories that describe how when a Maori warrior found himself surrounded by his enemies, a kite could actually provide the possibility of escape. The kites were powerful enough to take a man up into the air, and for this reason, they could also be used to lower him into enemy fortifications so that an attack could begin from the inside. Well, I'm happy to say there seems to be a revival and growing interest in kite making, and
Welcome back. Alright, so honestly tell me how many answers are correct. See now through this video, now Asad Yaqub is with you. There is a teacher who is asking you how many answers are correct. Tell me how many. Okay, that's lovely. If your 35 plus answers are correct, it's fantastic. It's fantabulous. And if your 30 plus answers are correct, like 31, 32, and you are looking for 7 band, even then it is good. Alright, and if your less than 30 answers are correct, I would say just write down the right answers and go back and play the audio again and see why your answer is wrong and why another answer is the right answer. This is what we call investigation. So you need to investigate. If your 10 answers are wrong, go back and investigate why your 10 answers are wrong, why other answers are the right answers. find them in the audio. This quest of looking for the right answers will improve your listening skill and will improve your IELTS listening exam skills as well. If you like this video, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe my channel. I run another channel, Asad Yaqub Vlogs. You can subscribe to that channel as well. I also teach IELTS online. If you want to join my online IELTS classes, you can contact me for that. Asad Yaqub wishes you all the best with your IELTS preparation, and I really wish you all the best with your IELTS, and I wish you a fantastic band score in IELTS. Take good care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.